example of a large cypress tree. One that would be harvested in this area throughout the 1800s and the early 1900s. So they used to come in the cypress swamp, log these trees to build New Orleans out of. They would cut these trees down by hand out of little bitty boats called a pirogue, the size of a kayak, okay? They would come in here. The Mississippi River used to naturally flow through this area, so that water was much higher. You had natural flow through this area. You didn't have all the vegetation growing in here because you had moving water constantly. You know, this is now more of a stagnant swamp since we levied the river off and everything. But back in the day, the river would flow through here, which created the cypress swamp. And we come in here and cutting down all these trees. So we cut down a bunch of cypress trees. The problem is slow growth rate of cypress. Cypress, we're cutting down 200-300-year-old trees. They really don't even know how old they were, but they're age-old forests. They're protected now, kind of like the sequoias or the redwoods. But they had to put an end to it because we were demolishing all of it. It's what started the Industrial Revolution of Louisiana. So like I said, throughout the 1800s, early 1900s, they were coming in the swamp with a pirogue, standing on the side, cutting it back and forth. This tree would fall next to you while you had a bunch of water. You know, you couldn't run away from it. There's a bunch of water in here. You couldn't. It was just, you were stuck in a little boat, fall next to you. You got to ride the waves, you know. For what I did research on, they would actually come in here a year prior, cut all the limbs off of it, top the tree, and they would cut a ring around the bottom of the tree. They called it girdling. And what it would do is it would kill the tree. So they come in here a year later, whenever the tree was dead, a lot drier. It wasn't green wood anymore because it had been dead for a year. They would cut this tree down, and then it would float. So then they would ride these logs out with the pirogue and a big long stick, maneuvering it through these canals so they get it to the main canal, where a steam type pull boat would pull it with long ropes and chains all the way down the canal until they can get into the river. Then they would float it down the river to New Orleans. They built all uptown, downtown, French Quarter homes with it. The reason the wood was really sought after is because of its water resistant, rot resistant, and termite resistant properties. Problem with the wood is the oils that give it all those great properties make it very flammable. They built the French Quarter out of it multiple times. French Quarter is so close together, everything's on top of each other. So once one thing burns down, the whole thing goes, you know. But yeah, they actually put a ban to it because they were killing age-old forests. You know, in the late 20s, they stopped you from logging it. So the Industrial Revolution of logging the cypress trees was over, you know. Like 20 years later, it lasted where they were finally collecting all the logs and stuff. I think in the 50s, they finally shut down all the mills, you know. But it's a thing of the past, logging cypress, because we know what we're doing. There's more preservation efforts with the cypress trees. You don't ever really see people selling swamp because such a high value on these trees. It's more or less the land's passed down traditionally. You know, people lease out the land to deer hunters nowadays. They got a bunch of mineral rights going throughout the area, also with the pipelines and royalties of the pipelines going through their property. They make well off the swamp without having to sell it, you know. But yeah, they don't have many trees of this caliber left in the swamp because we harvest them. I mean, humans, we destroy everything, you know. But yeah, this could be a 200-plus-year-old tree. These little knobs coming out the water, called cypress knees, part of the root system of the cypress tree. They grow really wide and vast, interconnect with the other ones, help anchor the tree to the swamp. They grow out of the water like that to provide aeration to the root system. You gotta think they're fully submerged in water, so I guess they need a lot more air. But yeah, these trees are, they're pretty much more preservation efforts than logging of anything these days. Technically, you own this property, you could do whatever you want with these trees, you know. But people know how old they are and the value of them, so they just keep them and preserve them. Local plants will buy wetlands, marshland property, and they'll replant it with cypress, just ways to give back, you know. Plus, they destroy so much of our ozone. I think the EPA makes them do stuff like that, you know, preservation efforts. But yeah, I mean, mostly the land around us is just really used for deer hunting nowadays. Like 30 years ago, this was premier mallard hunting, like duck hunting. People come from all over the world to come duck hunting right here. But now we don't even see a mallard in the swamp. It's just straight deer hunting and publicly fishing the canals. You got goofy people like that going up and down. Fortunately, I know one of them. But yeah, they got a lot of fish in these canals. Bass, crappie, I might call them in some areas. We call them sockeye. Catfish capital of the world right here. So now the harvesting of cypress trees that they do is the sinker cypress, or even reclaiming it from old houses. But typically you find a log that's sunken in the mud. The longer it's sunken in the mud, the more valuable it could be. They say that the sinker cypress from our area is some of the most valuable and prettiest in the world because our mud, the oils from the wood itself preserve it in the water for hundreds plus years, and the oils in the mud seep into it and give it a prettier color. So it's really valuable sinker cypress. In the right hands of some people, you could really make some money off of it. Yeah. But yeah, they had people coming out here with crazy swamp coon ass ingenuity machines, freaking pulling these logs out the mud, dude. It's crazy. Walking in here with barefooted with sticks trying to find them. You know? They really got people like that. But yeah, mainly all you got is like this tree right here is a tupelo gum. You got a lot of tupelo gum growing in here because they kill a lot of cypress trees, you know. And plus, it's not as good of a environment for them to thrive in as it once was with the fresh river water running through here. Now it's more stagnant swamp, you know what I mean? So they're surviving, but they're not thriving, you know. But they still have other swamps that have natural flow of rivers going through, and they're better estuary. But this is just so close to New Orleans, they levied everything off. The primary focus of the river is to keep as much water in the river as possible without it overflowing, because it's a major ship channel, you know. Yeah. Port of New Orleans is one of the biggest import-export ports that we have in the United States. We're relying on ships coming in and out every day from other countries or wherever just to feed our country and export goods. But yeah, that low river that we had with a lack of rainfall all throughout the last year really played a big impact on everything down here. I mean, that's the reason why, whether you believe it or not, it had an effect on all of our lives. The reason the economy is the way it is and goods are more expensive because couldn't get stuff through our ports, you know. But yeah, it had a bigger effect on everybody down here than just that. I mean, you couldn't even have clean drinking water out your faucet, you know. It's still literally saltwater intrusion. But yeah, it's crazy. They created a bowl around New Orleans, but now the problem is once the levees break, you know, it has nowhere to go. The pumps don't work. Back in the day, everything was raised. You get flood water, everything was able to withstand 18 inches or so of water, you know. Evenly dispersed amongst the area, it wasn't that big of a deal. But now you got a bowl, once it breaks, it's all trapped in there. Catch 22, you know. You can hold out more water, but guess what? When you do have an issue, you know.
It goes.
But yeah, it's crazy to think they used to ride these logs down the river, though, you know. I mean, that river's 180 foot deep in some places. So, it ain't nothing to play with. You fall in that river, you're done. Any questions about anything? Got none of this stuff hanging from the tree? What it's called? Pear-like stuff? Spanish moss. Yeah, it grows in high, humid areas. Back in the day, they used to stuff pillows, comforters, seat cushions, stuff like that with it. Henry Ford had the first Model T seat cushion stuff with it in your first Ford vehicle. He also had some cypress crates with the parts were shipped to him with. He took them apart and made a dashboard out of it. So he was an advocate of the swamp in your first Ford vehicle. Pretty cool. But areas like this is typically where you'll find your little gators, because they can hide better, thrive better underneath the canopies of the trees, get bugs or insects of all varieties. They don't need to go in the canals. Once you get bigger, they need more sun, bigger fish, they move out there. But yeah.
Are they even trying to eat fish? Like,
oh yeah.
Like they're chasing after fish, like bass and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are ambush predators too. They just wait there until something gives them an opportunity.
Gotcha.
You know? But yeah, they look for wounded fish and all that stuff. That's any go vibrational water, they sense it and go towards it, you know, to see what it is. Right. You know? But, I mean, they've been around since before the dinosaurs. Apex predator. 12% survival rate out of here, though. Tough living. But yeah, we'll go check some other stuff out.